Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores thinking world flat, and with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other worlds. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
Portals of introspection, a reflection of my own face. In her warm, sunny eyes, I reach a serene space. Her vision tempts my mind, inspiring thoughts to written word. She holds my heart fixated, alluring me in curious urge. Caressed by her sly gestures, I touch her with my eyes, and with but one kiss I steal all her alibis. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen. And I have as guest with me Brother Tim Clark from End Times Matrix News. Chris was supposed to be on with us as well, but she is not going to be able to make it. Tim, are you there, brother?
Yeah, hi. How you doing today, Zen?
Really good. Thanks for taking the time to join me this evening, and look forward to catching up with you on all the work that you have been doing there. Before we continue, if you would, please give out, your website, contact information, whatever you'd like to share with the listening audience, and also speak about, maybe some of the recent projects that y'all have been putting forth.
Well, we've been really busy quite a bit these past few months, and we're just putting things into written format at this time. End Times Matrix News, our main channel that Chris monitors, is on YouTube, End Times Matrix News. That's where we put together all the videos with the elaborate diagrams that Chris comes up for us to explain the mythology as it connects to modern science, as we're currently collaborate with Anthony Patch on the continuing CERN investigations, Anthony being the foremost CERNologist, I guess, as they would call it, in the alternative media. And so that's the main YouTube channel that we post on. And then we also have the Facebook pages, End Times Matrix News over there. And then Chris just got back on the Facebook, so she has, if you look up Chris, as in K-R-I-S and E-T-M, End Times ETMN, then that is her webpage, where she'll post also all the visuals for the folks to see over there.
All right, excellent.
So we've been very involved, just putting together the pieces that we've been continuing lately with the things related to CERN and the end times and biblical passages. And we've really have some, I think it would seem very extreme to most people what we're working in, but I think we've come up with some very plausible scenarios for what's going on.
Well, I think that the issue with CERN is so very important and critical, and it ties to even what Christ had put forth with, as in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the second coming of the Son of Man. Because if you read in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, it speaks about how they were trying to open up, even during the Atlantean Age, these stargates, these portals, and doing these rituals were, specifically that they were offering blood and doing, whatever kind of blood rituals as a way to open up these portals and invite these darker entities, these, as it says, interdimensional and even serpent-headed beings, shape-shifting beings, into this realm and dimension. And what I find fascinating about that particular text and the passages which are connected to it is that it seems to also, fit with the esoteric aspects of what we're learning about the not only the prophetic side of it from the Bible, but also, with the connections to the Nakash and the feathered serpent in Genesis chapter 3, the Revelation 12, that old serpent, that ancient dragon, that kind of thing. But that we see this also reflected in the mythologies. And so, can you comment on that?
Yeah, I basically have, as in explaining to people, why does mythology play so much into modern science? Why are they fixated on things like Shiva and the cosmology of physics and quantum physics as it relates to these ancient gods? And you basically come to I think for me, I come to the conclusion that in the glyphs and in the material left around the world, it was the Atlantean time frame that had this high science, this esoteric science, and they left the reverse engineering in the stories and in the glyphs so that in a future time, man, given enough revelation from the fallen angels, those who are in the occult side of things, who want to conspire with that side of things, will be revealed some of this fallen angel technology through the reverse engineering of these glyphs and the different landmarks, the megalithic structures and things like that. So that I think that's how I kind of frame it now, that we are basically reverse engineering the ancient mythology stories into modern science or into modern technology, from everywhere from the CERN related to the internet and the Wi-Fi and all those technologies, to CERN related to the Golden Age, ancient Saturn ruling the sky through the Thunderbolts projects, and then the Birkeland currents, of course. And so it's a mythology definitely plays a direct role in revelation as to what's going on in the end times.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I also see that, as you stated, that we're being led to a rediscovery
Mm-hmm.
um, of these ancient technologies, and that what they had achieved in the ancient past during the Atlantean Age and the pre-flood antediluvian world was high, very high technology,
Mm-hmm.
more so than what we are even have access to now, and that the fallen angels, the same powers, the principalities, these rulers of darkness and wickedness in high places, that they are leading humanity because of the judgments that have been brought upon them and world by the Most High God in destroying Atlantis and many of these antediluvian cultures and civilizations that were dedicated to the worship of these pagan gods and deities as the pantheon of gods and goddesses, which we know that has direct connection to the fallen angels and also the fallen watchers, but that the judgments that were levied upon them destroyed the technologies and the Stargate technologies, the things like CERN and other things that they had access to and that they were utilizing during those times to do those kind of things. And that, this is why we see Christ speaking of as in the days of Noah, and that we are seeing a repeat. And that, again, as you mentioned with the internet and with other things, with CERN and other things, that we see all of this being recreated and that humanity is being led down the same kind of broad path of destruction as we were, basically led astray to in previous age.
Yeah, and yeah, I agree. I basically my fascination coming from our backgrounds is more the anthropological and ancient studies type thing, but crossing over with the quantum physics has gotten into a lot of revelation when you cross-reference the Bible and the Holy Spirit inspiration that comes from seeking out these questions. So the Lord gives us nuggets and things to unravel over time if we seek them out. And I found out that the whole thing with the Wi-Fi thing and the internet and the I believe it was, what was it, Facebook and Zuckerberg trying to do the global flying internet over Africa and trying to link in everybody through through their net. And so I was trying to research the New Agers as they pertain to the coming New Age and the Fifth Age, and how they're embracing all this Fifth Age serpentine type of stuff. And I wanted to study some of these the higher occultists who are involved in the global communication through ley lines. And this one practitioner of meditation, yoga meditation for decades, was talking about how they was sat at the vortex on a ley line in a monastery and were able to connect with another person sitting on a node or vortex on that same ley line across the world at the same time. And I was going, well, this is just the old world's version of being linked in or
Right.
interconnected through the internet or the Wi-Fi kind of thing. But that would be the ancient spiritual type of, the sorcery and the spiritual dimensions. But today we do it through technology. And so I was just trying to connect those two together and see that we're going back to that. But now they're going to be jacked in through transhumanism this time around.
Uh-huh. Well, can you elaborate on that as far as
Well,
transhumanism?
well, that goes into I think when you do the studies on the geoengineering and the chemtrails are really these this nano dust, basically. We'll just call it nano dust, that everybody has ingested in their bodies at this point in time around the globe. And that is making us much more receptive to the net that they're putting up. And I think, who is it? What's her name? Let me just check real quick. I don't want to do her disservice. But let me see where I had it. I had it up here somewhere. It was the lady that's developing her research on the space fence. And well, I misplaced that link for her, but she was discussing, based off of some of Anthony Patch's research, that the particulates that are in the atmosphere through the centrifugal force of the rotation of the Earth is actually starting to develop a Saturn style. What do they call those? Saturn's rings. Yes, a ring around the Earth. That these particulates are actually developing that kind of thing, and then it's magnifying our receptivity to microwave transmission, and then through the Glenn towers and the different towers, you're going to be receiving different frequencies, which make us much more receptive to the mark of the beast technology when that comes along.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, that's
Really
pretty
interesting.
disturbing, actually.
Yeah.
But that seems to be where most of this geoengineering, that aspect of linking in the humans into the network, basically setting us up to be linked in. Once you have whatever form this mark of the beast mechanism takes and being inserted in the human body and flipping a switch and turning it on, and then linking you into that satanic network, basically.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Because I've looked into the chemtrails, but not in any great way, and I thought, that it was just to get people sick and to poison us with the heavy metals and the aluminums and the barium and things like that, and that the rain in carrying it down and hitting the ground or the pavement, that it then would vaporize it for us to be able to breathe in. But to hear you speaking about that, they are setting up a using that as a way to set up a technology which and then they can influence us directly
Right.
through, yeah, that's pretty heavy duty. Wow.
Well, I was talking, when I was talking about this the first time around, of what this actually looked like, and I started thinking of what is a Tesla coil. Well, it's basically something that's connected to the ground, and then something that looks like like a tower of some sort, and then a bunch of electric Birkeland current type things going off the top of it with the atmosphere. And I was going, well, that's similar to a human, that we're grounded through our feet, and we have this head where we have the halos in history. When you're looking at all the halos of the saints, and what's coming off their heads at that period of time. And I was going, well, it seems like if they jack us in that way, we're going to become receivers for whatever frequencies are being pulsed. And we already know that they can pulse different emotions. We know the frequencies of emotions like depression or apathy, things like that, just for population control reasons.
Uh-huh. Well, even like, I mean, the TV and what they show,
Mm-hmm.
and how they influence people directly, with all the subliminal advertisement and all the stimulus that is put in there, which we don't directly see. This actually reminds me of just recently. I'm going to ask you about this. The commercial that is a Pizza Hut commercial of all things about, and they're talking about and they're making fun of the
Mm-hmm.
Illuminati
Mm-hmm.
control. And then if you pay really close attention to this commercial, you see that it cuts away to these three images.
Mm-hmm.
One is, I believe the first one is a pyramid. The second one is the all-seeing eye, and then the third one is an owl. And so they're showing us, even though they're making fun of themselves, they're showing us how the Illuminati, has control and influence even over something as simple as a Pizza Hut commercial. Do you know what I'm talking about as far as?
Oh yeah, I saw two different ones. One was with the conspiracy theorists who thought the Pizza Hut person was a hologram,
Right, yeah,
and
that's the one I'm
reached out to
speaking about.
touch them.
Yeah,
Of course, making people who think. I always say conspiracy theorists are easy to define. They're actually people who read,
right.
and the ones who call them conspiracy theorists are the ones who watch TV.
Yeah, right.
And that's basically people who research and think for themselves versus the sheeple. And,
Right.
and so, yeah, that one was really interesting. They came out with one with that depressed, homesick alien also.
Oh, yeah,
Did you see that one?
Uh-huh, right. Mm-hmm.
Also making, friends with our friend the aliens here for the end time,
right.
that end time deception.
Yeah.
Which is really, the research that we're doing right now is really tying together all this stuff from Nimrod through CERN and into this post where we are right now. I believe the debate is going on right now between the Republicans and Democrats as far as the United States, and that was always the point, was that the United States had to be removed from a position of power so that the New World Order can finally
Right.
take full effect. And so you had to destroy the white hat image of the United States and
Right.
tear down the Protestant, Bible-believing last bastion of Bible-believing nations that represent freedom technically. I mean, I know we have a lot of witchcraft and stuff in our country, but the point was that's what we used to represent.
Right.
And so,
As far as the heart of the people.
yeah, the heart of the people, yes. As we can see, that the media with the Hollywood and the mainstream media have their own agenda along the United Nations Luciferian line of thought and what they pump
Right.
out there. And they're basically working off, I call it the Balaam's method, where you can't curse the children of Israel. God won't let you do it, but you can get them to be punished if you trick them into sin.
Right.
And so that's been the roadmap for forever now, that the haters of God have used to destroy society is, well, you can't stop a righteous country, but you can get them involved in sin, and God will, by them violating God's law, they'll stop themselves because
Right.
judgment will come on them. And so that's kind of where we are right now as far as the political stance, is that it's very interesting that we're right at that precipice of the whole New World Order thing being in full implementation, which is the Antichrist kingdom. So that brought us, Anthony and Chris and I, to this point of what's going on. And of course, Chris is going down the rabbit holes of the mythology, and connecting the planets and connecting the octaves and connecting the deities to what's going on right now. And I'm sure we'll have her on to, once we clarify that in a way that it won't be overwhelming. Yeah, we talk this stuff all the time, but it's very overwhelming to new people. It's like you're speaking a foreign language. And then,
Yes.
and of course, with Anthony, with the whole quantum physics thing. But
That is a foreign language.
yeah, it is a foreign language, the quantum physics. Actually, I grasp it right away because it makes more sense to me than actually practical physics did.
Yeah, right.
It did. It just, the whole spiritual element of the quantum physics with being quantumly entangled with Christ, and that he'll never leave you or forsake you. That whole concept right there is quantum entanglement. No matter what distance, no matter time, space, he's always there. You're quantum entangled.
Right.
And all that stuff went, it really, all this stuff actually brings out for me a very deep belief. It strengthens my beliefs, because it makes verses make sense that didn't make sense to me. You just think it sounds nice, but it actually, no, he literally is always there with you.
Right.
And I'm going, wow, that is just amazing concepts here.
Yeah, it shows on a very deeply and profound level how intimate our connecting link to Source is, and that it's always, always there, and nobody can take that from us. It's just that, most people aren't aware of it nor understand that connecting link, and then they also don't understand the language of God and how Spirit speaks to us even on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And because they have no recognition, they miss the whole complexity of as far as the supernatural aspects of everyday life.
Right. I absolutely agree. I totally have enjoyed my spiritual development in the last several years of doing this, through just understanding the depth of developing that side of yourself. And, the things that the world gets you off on, like the all these just seeking for powers, that whole concept of seeking for power or just seeking for perfection, the works related religions to perfect yourself, when all it is the Lord is right there with you all the time, and you just have to tune into the way he speaks to you.
Right.
And it's very much a powerful message to me. And,
Yes.
I was a Christian for lots of years without having this kind of connection. And now just relying on him daily, for revelation. It says pray for revelation in the end times. Guess what? You'll get revelation.
Right.
If you ask for it, how many people out there are asking for it?
Right.
So,
Right. Well, they don't understand to ask what they don't have connection and recognition of. They're more caught up in the matrix and the game as far as the whole 9 to 5 dream and the whole buying into, that life is all about getting a good education so that you can get a good job and buy a big house so you can fill it with a bunch of stuff, and then marry, attract a spouse which you then can propagate your lineage and build up an inheritance to leave to, and then the whole spiritual component of life and as far as seeking kingdom, all that is missed out, and most people have no understanding of it and no deep, profound connection with it, and because of that, they live completely for what Matrix is offering them, and get caught up in the delusions and the entertainments which have been created just to keep us separated and led astray, and not understanding who we are, where we are, and what all this is really about.
Yeah, and I completely agree that that the strength of your relationship to God is not something that is absolutely not emphasized. You always look at your culture, what they emphasize, and our culture emphasizes material, and it because they want to draw you into bondage, and
Yes,
they want to,
being good consumers.
yes, and they want you to exhaust your time and energy on remaining in bondage,
Right.
so that you never sit down. I used to say to my attention deficit kind of folks when I was treating them back in my mental health days, I said, I know what the worst torture is I could do for you is make you to sit on that chair right there by yourself for 5 minutes in a room by yourself and just sit. And
Uh-huh.
it drive you absolutely loony. You know?
Uh-huh.
And I said, because you're used to moving, you're used to just reacting and moving, and there's no resting and communing with God. There's just
Right.
this nervous energy.
Right.
So yeah, the Matrix is a debt system. It's just like the movie where we're batteries that uh, you know, fuel these vampires, and they suck
Yes.
us dry. And until you unplug from it and understand there's nothing they can offer you, because of your eternal destination is with God. It's not with
Right.
these vampires.
Right.
So, but yeah, we can go on to another topic. I didn't know yeah, if you wanted to know what we were doing.
Oh no, this is awesome. I mean, the way that we're speaking is like we're connecting and speaking on a very high level. Like almost like a heightened state of awareness, and that it's a, a a a way of communicating and also fellowshipping, which doesn't happen very often for people that are awake and aware, because we're so few in the world, and most people can't communicate and fellowship on these kind of levels. And so I think this is a real treat for the listening audience, for those that are awake and aware and that have, deeper, more profound connection like we do with the Creator and the creation, and that serve the kingdom in similarity. All right, we'll be right back, everyone. Romancing thoughts, I imagine the time we spent together and how it felt to be odd, like children, snug in the womb we call forever. Our dreams converge, demanding fate draws us home. The spirit winds of destiny calling those who roam. Drifting for unknown meaning, our paths converge together. Lucid dreams veiling night, proof of something better. Wilderness shadows, candlelight, the words of a forgotten letter, images of traded memories go streaming into forever. I've got a really interesting announcement. Just wanted to let people know that with these two poems that I read over the course of this show, I just wanted to announce that I had forever lost my first book and had no access to it. All the copies that had sold, and I had sold out of them. I didn't even have a copy for myself, but I just recently got in touch and reconnected with a very old friend that just happened to have a copy of my first book. And so at some point I'm going to start making some of those poems available and reading some of that literature. For those that don't know, my first book is called Look Somewhere Different, and it was basically my breaking away from the regular 9 to 5. That's when I decided to um, live in a van for 4 years and traveling across the United States, spending time in the different national parks and just writing poems and seeking the divine, and just engaging spirit on a everyday, very intimate and deeply profound level. And so those 4 years were very instrumental in making me who I am, and I can only wish that others have opportunity to do something like that in similarity, because I believe that not enough people do spend time with the creator and the creation in such way to then come to deeply understanding a deeper understanding of our connections with it. And if people did that more often, that there would be, more people that are awakened to the real truths of not just being plugged into Matrix. And so, I wish this for everybody, and I know that a lot of you that listen to my shows and that connect with the poems that I share, that you have recognition in what I am writing about and sharing with you in the prose that I write. And so for that, I'm grateful. But Tim, have you ever had chance? I know you said that over the last few years that you have come to deeper and more direct knowledge and understanding with the creator and creation. But have you ever had chance, opportunity to just completely cut yourself off from the whole the as far as the carnal aspects of the world, the 9 to 5, having to work and make money and pay bills, and to just pursue something of the kingdom for whatever time and whatever energy you could put forth in doing so?
Yes, I actually value that way of life much more than anything else, in the
I
sense
agree.
that I spent the last several years, that's why I haven't been as visible as I could have been, but dealing with taking care of Alzheimer patients, parents, things like that, and as they passed, and just a lot of terminal illness and things. So when you have to deal with, like my friends who worked in hospice, you had to deal with those types of situations. You're in a very soulful place in the sense of spirit and soul rubbing against each other, and meaning, and examining meaning.
Hmm.
And so you have to wrestle with that. And for me, the difference is the Lord gives me the peace. Okay,
Right.
when you're facing an existential threat to your existence, and you don't have that connection with the Holy Spirit indwelling you, then it's a very terrifying thing
Right.
to deal with. But there's a peace, that knowing that I will be eternally with the Lord no matter what happens.
Yes.
And there's the peace, and it's His peace. It's His peace coming through me. So it's not my peace. I couldn't make myself feel peaceful.
Right.
So I have to rely on His peace, His joy.
And
And
you get to share that with others.
oh,
And
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. And I totally believe in being the salt and the light of the world. I
Yes.
don't believe in being bunkered up and in bunkers, hiding from the
Right.
world.
Right.
I believe that the salt and the light of the Lord is to shine throughout as a final witness to this age, and as this fallen angel wants to have his last stand and drive out all Christianity from the face of the earth, then the world will see what happens when you don't have salt and light around. You'll
Hmm.
just have just pure vengeance. And the people who followed this Nakash are going to see that they have a cruel master
Right.
that cares nothing for them.
Hmm.
And he'll just laugh at them in hell as they're sitting there going, well, you promised us all these things.
Hmm. What a
Yes,
cruel joke.
it is a cruel joke. It's terrible. It's a
Hmm.
very terrible thing, looking at what's going on in the world today. That people, that veil of deception, the mind has been overthrown in so many people, that they're so plugged into, like we say, the matrix. But they can't talk. You were making a point about you're enjoying the conversation that we're able to carry on with folks on the spiritual level, meaningful spiritual talk. And I
Yes.
and I used to joke with people about that very thing. I said, it's like going why don't you go out to the sports bars and go to the parties and all that stuff? And I said, well, you kind of like would wander around in there, and my ear would always be tuned to listen for something that's gourmet. and all I get is weather talk.
Right, right,
You know, so it's like I'm looking for the gourmet, which is soul and spirit speaking, and all I'm getting is um, any of the stupid TV kind of
right,
stuff,
right.
The Simpsons or whatever.
Yes,
Well, some
yes.
people might say that's clever, but I'm trying to just say something that's of the Matrix that steers you away from your spirit. It always steers you away from the spirit. You
Hmm.
know, it always does. They did not want you to, like the Jesuit Pope saying he does not want you to have a personal relationship with Jesus because that's dangerous.
Right,
And I'm going, of course it's dangerous to the other side, which you're serving.
right, right. Exactly. Well, they don't want us to be empowered. They don't want us to have recognition of who we are through Christ and that Christ indwells within us and that we have, as we've been speaking about, this deeply profound connection to Him always as source because, He is the breath of life within us, the aspect of ourselves which gives our breath warmth, our body's consciousness, our hearts the beat, and without that we're just our flesh is just dust and will
Yeah.
return to dust and
Yeah, and but it makes the verses for me very profound. Like to live is Christ, to die is gain. What does that mean? Well, life is Christ. When you get to the profound level, that all the life comes through you from Christ. You know, the meaning, the hope, the future. And to die is gain means you get to be with Christ and your eternal reward. So the point is, when these people are operating on this level of understanding, what they're trying to tell the people is that you guys are in the matrix, you don't understand, and
right.
and Jesus used to say this to people. He says, my sheep hear my voice. They understand what I'm saying. You don't understand me. You
Exactly.
you can't understand me. And he kept saying that to the religious people. He kept saying, you guys cannot understand me because you're of your father the devil.
The devil, exactly.
And you get this profound enjoyment of these verses now.
Right.
With going, I really am understanding what he was getting through there on more and more subtle levels.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the amazing thing about the gospel is that when you have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and a mind to understand just how much is there, and then
Mm,
when you are able to read it and make sense of it, it's just like, wow, it's like,
yeah.
you had been reading a foreign language for all this time and had no understanding coming forth from the scriptures and no knowledge of them, but then all of a sudden the parables, in understanding everything becomes clear and meaningful and deeply concise. And when you're able to read the scriptures in such manner and being led by the Holy Spirit to be able to grasp what is contained therein, it's just wow.
Yeah, I had one of those moments. I believe it was, I call them these real big download epiphany moments,
Yes.
the whole life flashes before your eyes type of a download, one of those crazy, compact downloads you get. And if
Hmm.
people haven't had that, it's really, you don't ever forget these moments when you have
No.
these. That's why they set up stone.
Instantaneous knowing.
Yeah, when you have these stones set up in Bethel, in Israel, they got these markers of these moments where they crossed the Jordan. This is a moment they always will remember. Or
Right.
or I met the face of God at Bethel. Wow,
Yes.
house of
Yes.
God right here.
Right.
Every time that family or he would go by that, he says that's where I met God. And
Right.
it's
Yes.
like, and you get so excited when you talk about these things. And I remember I was bitching one day to God about being miserable and all this stuff, and about how these people had done me wrong and all this stuff had gone wrong, and I've been betrayed and all this kind of stuff. And he said back to me, and I feel the same way about you. and convicting me of everything I was complaining about. And I said, oh, amen, Lord, I repent.
Right, right.
Hail me right.
God has such a great sense of humor.
He said, everything you're saying is exactly how I feel about you.
Right, right.
And
Uh,
he busted me right there, and
right.
I was just going, hey, you know that.
Reality check.
And that's like a good parent, though. Good parent
Yes,
says, you
exactly.
know, snap out of it, Junior. Everything you're
Right,
complaining about, you've been doing to me.
right. Exactly. Exactly. Bring it to,
So
you know.
I love it when we get on conversations like this. This is where
Hmm.
you just become alive. You know, you
Yeah.
just feel it, you know, and you just get disgusted with this world, with this constant maniacal, psychotic
Yes.
walk of death, where they just kill innocent people with all these pointless wars just so that they can keep getting some more gas lines or something like that.
Right.
Insane.
Yeah, it is insane. And I saw earlier, just on the news because I was watching it for the weather, and how two stories just to show to how insane things are. This guy just out of nowhere punches this old elderly lady and just knocks her out on the streets, on the sidewalks, and then
Wow.
just runs away. And then this teacher who's supposed to be a behavioral specialist
Hmm.
slams this 13-year-old boy in a classroom to the concrete 3 times, and now the child, his leg is so messed up, mangled, and dislocated, he has to have his leg amputated.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I mean, just the insanity of where are, the mindset of these kind of people, and this is what we are daily dealing with as far as world and people that are so just disconnected and caught up in being led astray, and catering to that aspect of Cain within themselves. It's just, oh, it's insane to me.
Yeah, it's hard to watch. I mean, I always go back to de Tocqueville when he came over after the French Revolution to study why this revolution over here went better, and he basically said that America is good because the people are good, and the
Uh-huh.
point of that was that the founding fathers had anchored the people to reading the Bible as their primary primer.
Uh-huh.
Their primer to learn how to read was the Bible, and through reading, the Spirit of the Lord impacted their souls, impacted
Right.
their spirits, you know.
Yes.
And so the whole country was anchored in something that was good, even if there were, you know, all the occultists
Right. And the
at,
Freemasonic
at the seats
leanings
of
and all that.
power,
Yeah.
sitting there camped out in the
Right.
seats of power.
Yeah.
They couldn't do anything against a country that is that anchored. But you know, as interesting as, like I said, the topic of Balaam was that you want to get sin, introduce sin to the mix so that people become not good, and they don't
Right.
know they're becoming worse.
Right.
And this has always been the plight of the Israelites. You
Yes.
know, every time they go under judgment, bondage, and they come out of it, they got a generation or two that remembers that thing,
Uh-huh.
and then the kids go and say, "Well, that old geezer, he's always been telling me what to do
Yes.
his whole life, and now that he's gone, let's party it up with the girls next door."
Right.
And then you get back into all the pagan stuff,
Right.
and
Right.
it's a generational curse in the sense of, you know, we keep getting deprived of ever going past that a couple generations,
Yes. Yes.
you know, and it's a very fascinating thing. But
Right.
that's why people study civilization cycles, because it's
Yes.
basically based on generations.
Right. Right. And we can learn from history, even though, a lot of history is written through the conquerors, but still, um, what truth you can glean from that, we can learn from it, but yet we don't, and then we are doomed to keep on repeating, repeating, repeating. Even like with the vision of Daniel, as far as the various empires that fail, and now are being that the last, the beast kingdom and the new world order coming to light, and how all the sovereignty of the nations, how they can't have any powerful individual sovereign Bible believing Christian
Right.
based nations.
Mm-mm.
They have to destroy all of them with leaven and
Right.
with corruption, and the with broadcasting, just like the Alice Bailey, the 10-point plan to
Mm-hmm.
destroy America from within and to corrupt the children and to divide them from their elders, and respect from honoring the mother and the father as guided in the Ten Commandments.
Right,
But
which was the first commandment with promise. You think of all the kids that get cursed because they break the first commandment with promise, which is not to honor their father and mother, and how that impacts the next generation. There's curses that come upon people with their ignorance.
right,
And but the people who control society are not ignorant of these things.
right, exactly.
And that's one of the areas I've been researching with this whole Balaam thing. There was a great book put out by a researcher on political science and sexual liberation called Sexual Domininde, and basically tracking the centuries of using the sexual revolution from like the French Revolution to up to the communist revolutions in Bolshevik Russia, and just showing how whenever you have the sexual liberation introduced with no rules and all that, how society collapses and all this. And
Right.
they know this, so they introduce it so that they can become the political state can take control over the
Yes.
people. And that's how evil these people who serve the Nakash are,
Right.
is they're dedicated. They know what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and they're teaching the kids to go off on the wrong path and ruin their lives.
Right.
You know,
Right, they're corrupting their innocence, and
Mhm.
as it says in the scriptures, that one that harms the child,
Yep.
the innocence of the children, and they know exactly what they're doing, which is why their judgment, and as far as when the harvest comes, they will then get exactly what they deserve, and I'm so grateful and thank God for
Yeah,
that.
that he had showed us mercy to wake us up. And yeah, I mean, it's nothing that I did or Zen did that deserved the grace that God has shown us. It's the grace he extended to all the world.
Yes.
And I'm thankful to God for that. I was, this topic of confusion. I had a discussion last night, and this is where we are in this country. I had a few transgender people approaching me and asking me about what I thought about their lives and all this kind of stuff. And I was going, I'm going, you want my psychological evaluation? I said, this is what my problem with all these issues of male, female, and all this stuff is. I said, because they have infused confusion into our reality,
Right.
so that you can't even identify with your gender anymore. And
Right.
they confuse you. And so this is the spirit of confusion. It's not, Christ does not bring a spirit of confusion. That
Yes.
only leaves one source that brings the spirit
Right.
of confusion. And these are nice people. They've been so deceived, and they've had, but they've
Yes.
gone into altering themselves in an external way when the issue was an internal spiritual process.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't get that,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And again, the Alice Bailey, the 10-point plan to interject this leaven and this confusion, and to cause, the children to be led astray from the leadership and their Christian principles, as far as their forefathers and their parents and the previous generations, and they want that sexual liberation and that kind of open them to all possibilities, and to interject all this confusion just to create this insanity that we
Right.
see, reflected in this day and age.
Without
And
caring what happens to that person at all. That's the
Right.
point. You will see these communities that are rebellious in the sexual arena will throw people to the left and right to the waste, pile if they don't line up with the philosophy of the group.
Right.
And so they don't care about the individual. They just care about the agenda. And of course, this again goes into the verses about people being deceived and deceiving others. So these people are leading these movements, are thinking they're attaining something. They're
Right.
deceived in what they think they're getting, and they're
Right.
deceiving others in the process.
Right. Right. And they have no idea. Well, not all of them, but uh, those that are on the lower levels, they have no idea who they are actually working for. It's like the Shriners or the Masons on the sides of the road raising money for these organizations without understanding that at the highest levels, they know exactly who they are worshiping and who they are serving. But yet these lower level people, they think that they're doing the right thing and they're part of these groups because they're such good organizations that they are there to help the children in the communities. We'll be right back, everyone. All right, welcome back, everybody, for second hour. Just want to really quickly remind everybody, those of you that can't afford to, please do go to freedomslips.com. Click on the donate button and share what you can, and that even for $4.95 a month, you can gain access to the archives and go and download for your listening pleasure any of these shows put forth by the over 40 different hosts on both Studios A and Studio B, and that every show that has been um, captured and archived live by all of these different individuals is available through the archives, and that you can find those that you may not be able to listen to either because we have two different hosts going at the same time, or because the time is not good for you, whether you're asleep or at work or whatever. But again, those of you that can afford to, know that we appreciate you. Freedomslips.com, and thank you in advance for your support. All right, now as far as the discussion this evening, we're just really letting the Spirit guide us and lead us in discourse, and it's a pleasure to do so. I mean, I like not having set outline, even though those kind of shows are really good too, and to have a particular topic, but it's always a pleasure too to be able to just share discourse with another individual and talk about all the things that we have been speaking about. But one thing that you had mentioned, which I do want to bring forth, and this will be the open as far as for this second hour discussion, is your work with people that have Alzheimer's and dementia, and also with the hospice care. And I learned a long time ago when I acquired my disability how we are not promised any more tomorrows. That in any instance, on any day, that our lives could be ended, whether it's through accident or some kind of insane happening with whatever it may be, like Hurricane Katrina or whatever it is, or even like some kid throwing a huge stone from the bridge of the underpass, the overpass, and you're just driving through, and then all of a sudden the rock comes through your windshield and kills you. That we just never know when our time is up, and that having learned this lesson a long time ago, and that I also read about this when I was studying and reading this Carlos Castaneda series, and they talk about in it about recognizing death and understanding our own mortality, and in having recognition of our mortality, that we utilize such understanding and such knowledge to make the most of every moment of every day, and to not allow any um, any day to go by where you don't put your full 100% of who you are and 100% of just having chance and opportunity for the miracle of new day into whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's in sharing meal or relationship or conversation with whomever it is, whether it's loved one or family, hugging your children, telling them that you love them, or, calling your parents, or even speaking to somebody just off the streets, or, somebody that, whatever, in whatever way, that in recognizing that this could be our very last day, that those of us that um, understand such, that it makes you um, interact with the moment and with every waking day completely different than as if you were to believe that you have the rest of your life forward, and that you can do, that you have years and decades left to uh, do whatever it is that you want to do. That if you know that this could be your last day and your last moments, that you would react differently and make possibly different choices in what you choose to do with your time. Tim?
Well, I do think those um, that is true growth is when you get into these type of topics, when you because life and death, that's what we're dealing with the fall of man, right? That's the original garden story we're always dealing with. We keep coming back to it. The curse, the loss of the outer vesture, and the loss of life, and as the years peeled away, you had these people living 969 years, and
Right,
so
right, yeah.
you had great maturity in your seniors then, and the youngsters who were 300 years old, they still looked up to the seniors. But now we have this 70 to 120 mark, and we have a society that avoids it like the plague. Everything's about getting medicated for the slightest thing,
Right,
slightest discomfort. It's thank God it's what is it? It's the hump day is Wednesday. Thank God it's Friday. And then all you're doing is going from one boozing to the next boozing to get through the week, and before you know it, 30 years have gone by, and you're in some kind of daze, and that they just avoid meaning. And for me, the facing death, looking at death, and the way dealing with believers who have died in my family and elsewhere, and just talking with the nurses and stuff that have been around, who have watched different families and how they handle it. Those who aren't saved sometimes have an extraordinarily difficult time, and it's terrifying, that whole process. Where those who are at peace with their maker, even if it's a
right,
painful death, sometimes with cancers and things like that, everybody is relieved for them because they've gone to what they know is there, because they had that relationship through their life. And I think that the spirituality, being spiritual, being walking in meaning, as Zen saying, making your days meaningful, finding meaning in the moments. Even Paul talked about that, where I enjoyed where he says, "Hey, I've been naked and in the street, and I've had wealth, and whatever condition the Lord wants me in at this time, I'm fine with it." So he was basically saying he could live in either, depending on what the Lord wanted him to do.
right,
And
right.
I think that's what it comes down to. My ego doesn't get in the way like it used to, where I'm doctor this and that, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, I'm not gonna pick that up. I'm Doctor So and So,
Right,
where you have the owner of the company coming and unplugging the toilet and showing the entry level kid how to he has the humility to know that you got to be willing to do whatever you're
right,
called to do,
right,
different positions.
right. Yeah, it's like it reminds me of the whole thing where the apostles were asking Christ who amongst them was greatest,
Mhm.
and then he took the knee and started washing their feet, and basically example to them, that the the those that among you that serve humanity and your brethren and your and each other, that's really what it's about, and that's what we're here to do, to not one up each other, and to compete with one another in grandeur, so that we can basically say that we are greater because we have greater favor with Christ, or that we have
Right.
more knowledge, or more wisdom, or more blessing, or more wealth, or whatever. That it's not about that at all. That the most humbled servant is counted as greatest in the kingdom.
Yeah, and I think that the Lord, I don't think it ever registers with people that the Lord really looks at each individual as an individual soul as more precious than anything.
Yes.
That the person's soul is much more precious than anything they could ever acquire in this lifetime.
Right.
And he sees them as each precious little souls,
Yes. His
and
children.
his children. He sees them as children. And that's why when you see things like Haiti, where you got 1,000 people getting killed and whole, 90% of the structures wiped out and stuff like that, those who understand Christ and understand what he cares about are trying their hardest to help get those people, because that's what he would want to do himself if he
Hmm.
was there physically. He would be there,
Yes. Right.
for those, because those souls are suffering, you know.
Yes.
And so it is evaluation of the matrix. And it's interesting when Satan and Nakash unplugged from God out of his pride, and he had his fall. He unplugged from caring. He unplugged from
Yes.
life. He unplugged from the value of life, and he entered into being the god of death. He entered into death. And so this is what he does. He lies, murders, steals, kills, and destroys.
Right.
That's his programming.
Right.
So when you get spiritually born again, when you become quantum entangled with Christ, and the love of Christ for you starts coming through you as you fellowship with Christ, then there's the life, there's the light, there's the salt, there's the meaning.
Yes.
And there's the meaning, and it really comes down what is the meaning in life. I've dealt with people who, well, where everybody knows folks like this, but I know people who were racing champions who, parked their Porsche at the beach and blew their brains out, things like that. They had everything the world could offer them, the fame, fortune, the cars, the women, and all this stuff, and they still couldn't take it because of that emptiness. And that's the
Yeah.
spiritual death.
Right.
That is, and people don't grasp that. We're born spiritually disconnected from God.
Right.
We have a human spirit, but we're just born that whole lack of that light vesture being connected with him. And through his spilling of his own blood on the cross, there's that blood, once and final blood sacrifice. There's no need
Yes.
for any blood sacrifices anywhere ever again.
Right.
Christ covered it all. And that thing with the life being in the blood, that quantum entangled us right there.
Yes.
Any of us that accept that gift, we're quantum entangled with Christ for forever.
Right.
And it's surreal when you start thinking of this. And
Yes.
I mean, it's really a deep, deep thing. And before we started talking about spirituality and quantum physics, you really had a hard time grasping some of that.
Right. And then, again, for those that are caught up in Matrix and that do not recognize what this is really about and what our roles and our missions for being here, because we have choice. We have choice. We've been given free will choice to, in my opinion, to either do as Christ and be servants unto one another, which I consider to be like the path of the priest in servicing flock and congregation and the sheep, feed my sheep,
Yep.
or to seek out self-glory like in the way of Cain, in the way of the kings, in seeking self-gratification over that of the common good of all the people that that are in your kingdom, and that which you have the power to control or to take care of. And the reason why, in my opinion, that we are being shown in this duality in this world, what it is like for the angels and us as humanity, being given free will to create what we what we are and how we see the perpetuation, the propagation of evil in this dual-natured world, is to show us why we need a sovereign, just, and loving and compassionate, kind-hearted and goodly-mannered and dispositioned God to lead all things, because otherwise we're going to create chaos and we're going to create death and murder and rape, pillage, and plunder, because whether it's only the angels or a certain portion of humanity, given free will, many will choose self-gratification, self-indulgence, and service to self over that of the example that Christ gave us in servicing each other and humanity.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's, in my opinion, what all of this is really all about.
Yeah, it is this thing called time that was created for us to go through this this matrix of this in the valley of decision, right?
Yes,
we're all in the valley of decision our whole lives,
right?
And throughout history you get to see the righteous societies rise and you get to see them fall. And it keeps being reemphasized when we detach from God, the source of righteousness, then we're unable to maintain any sense of righteousness. We become unplugged. We become without our. That's why I love the images of the flowing river, flowing from the throne room. It flows to us. The water, the
living water.
It bubbles up in us, out of our being, and through us, and the whole point is that water. Without water, right? That's the first thing all the preppers say, isn't it? Without water, you're dead, right? So the first thing you got to do is water. Well, that's the same thing. The first thing you got to do is your spiritual water.
Yes.
Spiritual water, nothing runs right unless you just take a couple months off from doing anything with reading scripture or praying or any of that, and you'll just feel completely lousy. And and you'll be, it's like, why did I ever do that? To unplug from God. But that is the rebellious nature of this Nakash, this rebellion, this thing, this rebelling spirit, this prideful rebelling. I did it my way, Frank Sinatra. I did it, I'm my own captain of my own ship. God is my co-pilot. Things like all those famous sayings. And it's kind of like when you get over yourself and you can humble yourself. It's always a matter of humility to approach the Father and say, you're the creator and I'm the pot or the crackpot or whatever, however you want to say it. And you're the one that molds me and shapes me and makes he always makes you better than you can ever think that you would ever be doing it yourself. Anything you got planned yourself, he's always got something better. His ways are better. And you don't understand this, but that's what a loving parent is, in the sense of they know how you operate. They know what you would value, and they want to see you happy, and they want to give you the opportunity to have some things beyond what you can imagine for yourself. But it comes from humility and understanding the source of where all life flows from. And, I'm glad that I'm glad for everything I've gone through just to get to this point where I can hear you are talking about nuclear war day after day. And, and I'm very peaceful. And they say, how do you digging around in all this occult garbage all day, Tim? And I say, well, I don't think I actually really chose it originally. There's no way you start off saying I'm going to be studying CERN and the fallen angels and the return of Nimrod and all these things,
right?
And
the evil and heaviness of the New World Order.
The heaviness of the depression, and people who don't have this, who don't depend on the Spirit of the Lord, their hearts are going to fail them for what's coming on the earth.
Yes,
these are very depressed people because they're relying on themselves.
Right.
They don't want to give in. See, it's like surrender. I surrender.
Yes.
They don't want to surrender to the need to reach outside themselves and say, Lord, you created everything, including me. You know how I work best.
Right.
And but that humility, see, that pride and humility thing is just amazing.
Yes.
It's amazing. And we always have to revisit this throughout our growth as Christians too. We always have to revisit this because our pride wells up when everybody starts flattering. Flattery is one of the greatest ones to get you. You
Uh-huh.
know, that would get all puffed up with that. You know,
Right.
it's like, and I learned finally, I said, when everybody's calling you the worst piece of whatever in the earth, or they're calling you the greatest thing that ever happened since sliced bread, ignore both of them. You
Right.
know, and just stay on course with God.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's because it has caused the greatest amongst us to fall and to lose connection and to be cast out and exiled and to have to go through what we're going through now as far as duality in order to learn the lessons that we're learning and to coming to understanding on all those things that we are now being led to discernment on. And it's been a difficult journey, but as far as coming to, I call it being found. That those that understand and that come to the truth of who they are and their connection, the quantum entanglement, as you
Hmm.
say it with Christ, that really is being found. That's the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
That's what they've been, the fountain of youth, the thing that they've been looking for. All of these explorers and all of these mystics that have been through their whole lifetimes dedicated to seeking something greater and something outside of themselves. um, they then, after wandering all over the earth or doing all of these journeys, they've then recognized that the kingdom is within and that
Yep.
it's been with them uh, for, and has been the whole
Right.
time.
God will put up with you wanting to do the works religion as long as you want to until you get exhausted. If you can go around the earth 5 times, go into every workshop known to mankind and studying with every guru and studying with any holy man out there until you get worn out and give up, then you're fine.
Right.
Then you're finally at some place where he can actually work with you.
Right, right, exactly. But we have a way of that. I think there's a line in one of the YouTube songs talking about running to stand still, or basically chasing our tails,
Hmm.
that's what we have to do. That's the whole journey of the prodigal son.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
It's the way of life. And so at this point in time, I'm sitting here going, here you have this kind of revelation about the return of Christ. The apocalypse is the revealing of Jesus. It's
yes,
not Z Nation. It's not Zombie Nation.
right,
It's none of the stuff they're showing us on TV with vampires and zombies and all that stuff. Although you're going to have some creepy stuff that happens because of
right,
all the things these people have been doing in
right. Some
their
spiritual
labs,
weirdness.
you
Yeah,
know. So, but the point is, as a Christian, I'm supposed to sit here and go, I'm not. I need to just remember to stay childlike and grounded in God. It doesn't mean you're naive. It doesn't mean the last group of people I think are naive are us out here doing this kind of research.
right.
But the peace of Christ is what is there for us. The joy of Christ is there. I don't think you can do this kind of stuff without becoming severely depressed. For
It weighs on you
yeah,
un- until again, you have and find that peace within yourself and you give it up to God, and you're connecting link with Him, that you're good no matter what. And it doesn't take running away from America or going to, as you said, as far as locking yourself in that deep underground bunker and, with all of your food and supplies and just waiting for the apocalypse to pass over. I'm good no matter what. And only God will only let whatever He wants happen to me, and
yeah.
wherever I am, I'm good.
I trust the Lord in His process. I believe in preparing.
Yes, absolutely,
In the rational
absolutely.
mind, your rational
Right.
mind is given to you to be. You can
Right.
see that the Hurricane Matthew is coming. You might
Yeah.
want to
Right.
get some cans of gas and get
Right.
out of the way or something like that.
Yeah, some food supply, some
Right,
water, some
right.
batteries,
Common sense,
flashlight. Yeah.
but when
No
it
need being paranoid though.
no, but I
Right.
mean, like you said, nobody's promised another day, and I think being
Yes.
around the hospice and all those things, we've seen that.
Yes.
And
All right, hold on, Tim.
sure.
We'll be right back for final segment, everyone. Welcome back, everybody, for final segment. I want to open this portion with the importance of balance and also what I've learned as far as, family members, friends, loved ones, those that you want more than anything to also place value on those things that are important to you in coming to knowledge about what's really going on in the world, that we can't, no matter how much we wish for them to be awakened and enlightened on these particular topics and issues, you can't force them. Just the whole adage of you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. It absolutely applies in this case as well, and that really, rather than arguing or trying to force them into study on such topics, that you really just have to allow them to be where they are. And if they choose ignorance and choose to not know and to not care and to not have any kind of compassion or any kind of interest, any inkling of interest in any of these topics, well, you just have to let them be where they are, and pray for them and wish them the best. Drop seeds where you can, mention things, but don't try to force feed them, because all you're going to do is drive them away. And so I'm going to get you to comment on this, Tim, and then I'd like to go into, as far as in your studies, what it is that you see coming and what it is you are looking for.
Okay. Yes, I absolutely agree with you that just like the story of the sower, where you just cast out seed, you're just responsible for spreading the seed. You're not responsible for it taking root or them how they respond to it.
Yes.
And that's kind of the watchman. When you hear people talking about the watchman's call, I was definitely called to be a watchman. And
Yes.
that's why, it might sound sometimes like some of my posts are a little aggressive, but it's more like a slap in the face in the sense of pay attention, because
Right.
the smoke is coming to the wall here, and you guys are still asleep, and you're going
Right.
to be caught. You're going to be caught asleep. So I'd rather you
The
be mad
building's
at
on
me,
fire.
right? I'd rather you be mad at me than dead.
Yes,
So
exactly right.
so that's the way I look at it. So sometimes, we can sound a little bit, being a short or whatever, but that's not really it's not calling people stupid or any of those kinds of
Yes,
things.
yes.
I understand that the veil is over people's eyes, just like with Israel, the veil is over their eyes till a given time.
Uh-huh.
As a nation, the national veil is over
Yes.
their eyes. But yeah, spreading seed, you're not responsible. The action there is you're choosing to spread it. And for those loved ones, I think it's just normal with the Watchmen, and I think it's normal with anybody doing this that there's people in your family that just roll their eyes when they see you coming.
Right.
That's a normal response, and that doesn't bother me. And over time, all the people who have basically thought that you're just out there or something, they've all come around in my family to basically agreeing with me now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always the hardest one. Jesus always, they were going to throw him off the highest mountain,
Right.
which is typical of your family.
Right. Right.
And so, but what I see going on right now, I've had some major revelations that I think that are coming to pass. As far as a time frame, not looking there's some interesting events. I mainly look at the 2017 September events as being
Yes.
what's most important.
Can you elaborate on that? Because I see the same thing as far as the sign of Revelation 12. I don't know if you know what I'm
Yes.
talking about.
Yeah,
Yes.
the woman in the stars is the main
Yes.
thing that I've been looking at for good 2 years now.
Right. And
And
its alignment with
right,
Yeshua's fulfillment of the fall feast.
right. So it is a actual biblical marker. Okay. The interpretation, what will happen then, is up for grabs.
Right.
But it is a biblical marker, which you cannot deny that it's a biblical marker. And it puts us in Revelation 12. So
Yes.
that makes reading Revelation rather interesting because
Right.
people are going, we're not even in Revelation yet. And some say we completed Revelation. Some say we're here, there, and everywhere. And so that puts us right in Revelation 12.
Yes. Yes.
Now, as far as with my studies at CERN, and I believe it's connected to the opening of the abyss, and Anthony believes that due to the adiabatic quantum computers that came out of D-Wave, that CERN is running off of artificial intelligence, and that they have now developed to a level where the codes can be cracked for the abyss. So the actual key to the abyss, from Anthony Patch's perspective, and I agree with him, is a code of sequence through these quantum computers that goes beyond Shor's algorithm, which was like the most elaborate codes that could ever be made. The quantum computer and the quantum physics makes it possible to go on two sides of the veil, basically. You're going on this side and the other side, and you're getting fed back information from the other side. And so that key is going to be connected to CERN and the opening of the abyss. For those who aren't familiar with CERN that much, I give a quick, the name originally meant Center Energy Research Nucleaire, which was it's founded back in 1954 for researching nuclear explosions and particles and stuff like that. Then that's their stated design for what they were doing. And then basically the interest to the people who are watchmen, why this became fascinating to us, is because it's an unreal particle accelerator. This collides particles at the speed of light, and the going story is to find the origins of the Big Bang. And my thing is, well, that's pretty easy to find. The origins of the Big Bang is that Jesus spoke it into existence.
Right.
But that whole
look all around you.
right. But what's profound about that story is that so much related to CERN is based on sound octaves.
Yes,
frequencies, all these things.
Vibrations.
And you go, wow, what they said in the Bible about being spoken into existence is really true here. Right. So you get into all of that. So I'll bring up my revelation that right now that I'm really interested in, and this is my speculation, is that I'm bringing out of the, some people know the Nostradamus quatrain about Geneva. Do you know about that one?
No.
Okay, there's a quatrain called Quatrain 944 about, it could be related to CERN. And I was thinking about this. Birkeland current, CERN.
Can you share it by chance?
Sure. I have a small quote here. I'm not the greatest on the quatrains. I haven't studied them. But this is what it says. Here's the quatrain as it's listed here. It says, leave Geneva, every last one of you, comma. Saturn from gold, right, golden age, to iron will be changed. And you, with all your poetry background, can see that. Saturn from gold to iron will be changed. The opposing, and then this strange word, it says Raypoz, Raypoz, will exterminate all. Before it has started, the sky will show signs. Okay? Now, I was pondering this. I was going, okay, this is, CERN is located over, let's find that for you here. I had the X out of one of these things because they have this little ads playing in the background sometimes, and it messes ruins your page because it just comes on out of nowhere. Let me just see if I have it right here. If I wanted to pronounce the site properly, but I might have had the X out of it. Oh boy. Oh, well, that's okay. Well, CERN is located over the ancient site of Apollyon. And as we know in Revelation 9:11, the angel of the pit is Apollyon or Abaddon.
Right.
And so this thing is built over the gates of hell, basically, or the pit or the abyss, however you want to say it. So with the key being a algorithm that is worked out by the quantum computer, then we have the key. So that unlocks the doors. Now, this is where I differ with some of the other folks out there on this. Originally, when we're talking about establishing a portal for the transference, now this is what Anthony Patch and Chris and I have talked about for years with the connection with the Birkeland currents to Saturn, is the transmission of the spirits from that Saturn cube through the portal into this reality and then into avatars. These spirits would enter avatars that have already been made. Now, what I was thinking though, this is the agenda. Okay, the Satan is a double crosser. He's always murders all those people who follow him. He just uses them for as long as he can. And when I saw, yeah, they're expendable, And so when I saw the quatrain, it made me think that, it really is very likely that now with that quatrain as the final piece for my speculation here on this is that they will open the pit, that they will use the quantum computers to open the pit by opening the key, using the key to access the dimension, opening the dimension. But then we have the doors, right? So I think that whatever happens with this Birkeland currents connecting to CERN, there'll be such an overcharge of energy with CERN that it will actually blow the doors off the gate of hell and blow up CERN. That's where I'm going, because I know what they intend. I know what the scientists intend. They intend to establish a stable portal, but all their information has come from the other side, and the other side feeds them the technology and the information to build these things. Because this is just the way it's been done since Nazi Germany and before. They sit there and channel the information for the technology.
Yes.
So my differing here and speculation of going along with this Nostradamus quatrain is that they will access the key, the dimension will be open, and the doors of hell will be blown off by overload and an explosion at CERN, if you want to match it up with Nostradamus.
Wow. Wow, this is very interesting because I pulled up the quote from the Emerald Tablets. I'm going to read it really quick. It says, "Speak I of ancient Atlantis, speak of the days of the kingdom of shadows, speak of the coming of the children of shadows. Out of the great deep were they called by the wisdom of earthmen, called for the purpose of gaining great power. Far in the past, before Atlantis existed, men there were who delved into darkness, using dark magic, calling up beings from the great deep below us. Forth came they into this cycle. Formless were they of another vibration, existing unseen by the children of earth men. Only through blood could they have formed being. Only through man could they live in the world. In ages past were they conquered by the masters, driven below to the place whence they came. But some there were who remained hidden in spaces and plains unknown to man. Lived they in Atlantis as shadows, but at times they appeared among men. When the blood was offered, for they came they to dwell among men. In the form of man they amongst us, but only to sight were they as our men. Serpent-headed when the glamour was lifted, but appearing to man as men among men, crept they into the councils, and taking forms that were like unto men, slaying by their arts the chiefs of the kingdoms, taking their form and ruling over man. And sought they from the kingdom of shadows to destroy man and rule in his place." Now, what makes all of that interesting and what you just mentioned is that in looking back at the story of Atlantis and them doing this kind of thing, it makes me think, well, did the Most High God destroy Atlantis because opening these stargates and inviting these beings, that they did something similar as CERN, and possibly which is why we see the Bermuda Triangle and the effects and the after effects of that, because Bermuda is supposedly a part of the Atlantis and the experiment
Right.
of those times. And so is that something that is ongoing from the experiments that they performed during that time? And also it makes me wonder, because I know right now that the Most High God has his hand of restraint on not allowing them
Right.
to succeed. But it's my opinion that that hand is going to be removed, and he's going to allow them to bring forth these demonic entities that they're trying to conjure, and that they're performing these rituals and doing these things, and that they will have a large part to play in the wrath of God being poured out on those not written into the books of life at the end of days.
Yes, I absolutely. If you go off the playbook of deceiving and being deceived, the royals, the blue bloods, all the Nakash bloodline types are believing in the story of Atlantis, the Golden Age, and Plato's Republic. They believe in the ruling class, the god kings, the philosopher kings. They believe in the military in the middle to manage the slaves underneath. This is where they're going towards. But that's their plans. My deviation here is that may be their plans, but I'll tell you what Satan's plans is to wipe them all out
Right.
once he gets what he needs, and all he needs is to get that key to turn.
Yes.
Once those doors, that dimensional barrier is lifted, I absolutely believe he would just absolutely blow the doors off that cell, and so nobody could ever stuff him back in it, and
Uh-huh.
it never can imprison him again.
Right.
And then the world will be blackened with
The order out of chaos.
you start getting that whole world blackened with darkness and stuff. You start getting the stuff coming out of the pit. You start getting
Right.
the great earthquake and all those things.
Yes.
And and next year, 2017, and Chris and I have been examining as the cosmic egg crosses the 88th meridian right there over the new Madrid fault line, you're going, they believe that, creation was birthed from this egg. And the other piece that is really wild, even more wild than all the stuff I'm saying, is that now I'm getting the image that with the outer ring of the particulates being put in space with this chemtrailing, they're geoengineering of the surface, and that with the strangelets coming from CERN falling to the center of the Earth, and the actual inner core expanding, which will cause more volcanoes and earthquakes and all that stuff, that it's being turned into, I believe it's a neutron star. But that's what we originally thought. But if we start getting these outer rings, then I'm going, here's your connection. The old Saturn, the time machine, it's running down to its last ticks, and they're transferring from the old time machine to the new time machine,
Right.
which is going to be the Earth and the new Saturn. That's where I'm going.
Wow. Wow, that is so heavy.
Isn't that trippy? That's
Yeah.
extremely trippy, and that was without drugs, people. I always tease the kids. I said, "You think like I think," and and I don't
Right.
smoke anything, guys.
Right.
And they're going, "I can't believe you're."
Right.
I tease the kids with it. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
try God.
that's where I'm actually saying, yeah. And I said that to the kids. I say that you
Yeah.
said, my quote is that sci-fi can only dream of going where the Bible's already been.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
So that is, I'm laying out, that's where we are going as far as our research right now. And that's pretty, I don't know how more over the top you can get than that, but
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty heavy. And that's what you are involved in, you and Chris
Mhm.
and Anthony, in bringing forth Most certainly, it's a very unique approach to the fullness of the story that unites the ancient mysteries with the prophetic word and the conspiratorial side of, what's going on in the world. And so we appreciate your unique approach and the information that all of you are bringing forth, and most certainly let them know that as well. But we got 2 minutes remaining, Tim, so I want to give you a chance to give out all your website contact information again, and where people can, if they want to ask you questions or check out your work or the videos and support you in what you do.
Well, we're in the process of still putting out our books, and we've had reasons why we haven't put them out. And so, End Times Matrix News on YouTube is where you'll find all the videos with elaborate. Chris really goes into detail with these images of mythology so that you can see. Because talking about it's hard to grasp it without seeing it.
Hmm.
So we really need the visuals. There's a very visually driven
Yes, yes.
storyline for us with the Birkeland currents and all those kinds of things
Hmm.
too. So End Times Matrix News on YouTube, Facebook. There's 2 pages. Chris End Times Matrix News ETMN, and also me and End Times Matrix News on Facebook. And you can get to either of us through those sources. And we'll be coming up with a new website as we if we get if we get time to do all these things
Yeah, right.
before the kookiness happens,
Yes,
and
yes,
I'm at
yes.
peace with that. I don't need to.
Right.
I'm at peace with however God directs us.
Yes.
We're just getting out the information, and we've always been trying to get out the information
Right.
without just holding it for books and things like that.
Yes, yes. Yeah, me too. Same thing. But yeah, I feel lucky whenever I do get a chance to put out another book. But also, just so you know, Tim, I don't know what kind of problems you guys are having with books, but I am actually in the process of creating a company, Sacred Word Publishing. So if y'all need help in bringing whatever it is that you're doing to actual book publication, just let me know, because we're going to be trying to help with whatever time we have left and remaining,
Right.
help others to do that kind of thing and to, share their information, share their knowledge with the world. So,
Right. And my focus with the publishing side of things was I was thinking of doing an e-zine or something like that that's quicker. But I really want to be graphically driven for the imagery conveys the totality of the story more than the
yes.
volume of, writing tomes for this type of material. It just
Uh-huh.
doesn't seem to match up correctly
Yeah.
with traditional publishing. So,
Yeah.
yes, we'll be approaching you, Zen. Thanks
Okay,
for the
yeah, let me
invitation.
know, because we can do that. And as far as mix of images
Mhm.
and, with words or whatever, we can help you do that,
Yeah,
and
we're
I'd
gonna
be
have
glad to.
we call them mini books. We're gonna be very short on the writing side of things, heavy on the designs, so that people
Yes.
can grasp it better.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's great, man. And yeah, most certainly anything that we can do to help out, even if it's just give tips or help you to actually bring it to publication, whatever. And that's also for all of you out there. If you're wanting or needing help or guidance, I've been publishing books since 1992 was
Hmm.
my first book, and I'm 10 into it, so. I have the knowledge and the know-how, and I want to share that with the world. But I'll give you a chance for final comment, Tim.
I just appreciate you, Zen. I've always put you up there as number one in my book, and I always enjoyed you and your fans, the folks that with your program, and the topics always resonate with me when I'm listening to you and talking with you. It's a real soul level kind of connection. I really enjoy my brother Zen here.
Absolutely, and I had a fantastic time fellowshipping with you this evening, brother. I know that this program is going to go out and bless all those that hear it, and so I thank you, and definitely you and Chris, hopefully she'll be able to join us next time. Just for the listening audience, Tim and Chris will be joining me again on our Saturday broadcast on Secrets Revealed, so that we can bring forth their information to that listening audience as well. And please do join us when that happens, and I'll let everybody know. But Hey, brother, we appreciate you as well. And do you have any upcoming interviews?
No, we have honestly been just a research driven ministry.
Yeah,
Because we're just so in depth on the
yeah,
depth of this stuff that to sit there and interview lots of different people is not really turned. That's not
right,
really where our ministry went. So it is
right.
interesting. Yes, you would think you normally go out and seek out a bunch of interviews with lots of different people, but we've been really going deep on these topics. So,
Yeah,
sometimes it's but we enjoy. We do listen to lots of different people, but
yeah.
our research has been pretty focused on these kinds of things that not a whole lot of people are into the Egyptian Enid and Ogdoads and all that stuff, and and the connections with modern quantum physics. I mean, you're not going to run into too many people doing that.
Oh goodness. Huh. Seems like we lost connection with the studio, Tim. So,
Oh, okay.
all right. We'll talk to you soon, then, brother. God bless you.
All right. Thank you, Zen. You have
All
a
right.
great evening.
You too.
Bye
Peace.
bye. New Age and the Fifth Age, and how they're embracing all this Fifth Age serpentine type of stuff, and I wanted to study some of these the higher occultists who are involved in the global communication through ley lines. And this one practitioner of yoga meditation for decades, was talking about how they was sat at the vortex on a ley line in a monastery and were able to connect with another person sitting on a node or vortex on that same ley line across the world at the same time. And I was going, well, this is just the old world's version of being linked in or
Right.
interconnected through the internet or the Wi-Fi kind of thing. But that would be the ancient spiritual type of, the sorcery and the spiritual dimensions. But today we do it through technology. And so I was just trying to connect those two together and see that we're going back to that. But now they're going to be jacked in through transhumanism this time around.
Uh-huh. Well, can you elaborate on that as far as
Well,
transhumanism?
well, that goes into I think when you do the studies on the geoengineering and the chemtrails are really these this nano dust, basically. We'll just call it nano dust that everybody has ingested in their bodies at this point in time around the globe, and that is making us much more receptive to the net that they're putting up. And I think who is it? What's her name? Let me just check real quick. I don't want to do her disservice, but let me see where I had it. I had it up here somewhere. It was the lady that's developing her research on the space fence, and well, I misplaced that link for her, but she was discussing, based off of some of Anthony Patch's research, that the particulates that are in the atmosphere through the centrifugal force of the rotation of the Earth is actually starting to develop a sat.
In the ancient past, during the Atlantean Age and the pre-flood antediluvian world, was high, very high technology,
Mhm.
more so than what we are even have access to now, and that the fallen angels, the same powers, the principalities, these rulers of darkness and wickedness in high places, that they are leading humanity because of the judgments that have been brought upon them and world by the Most High God in destroying Atlantis and many of these antediluvian cultures and civilizations that were dedicated to the worship of these pagan gods and deities as the pantheon of gods and goddesses, which we know that has direct connection to the fallen angels and also the fallen watchers, but that the judgments that were levied upon them destroyed the technologies and the Stargate technologies, the things like CERN and other things that they had access to, and that they were utilizing during those times to do those kind of things. And that, this is why we see Christ speaking of as in the days of Noah, and that we are seeing a repeat. And that, again, as you mentioned with the internet and with other things, with CERN and other things, that we see all of this being recreated, and that humanity is being led down the same kind of broad path of destruction as we were, basically led astray to in previous age.
Yeah, and yeah, I agree. I basically my fascination coming from our backgrounds is more the anthropological and ancient studies type thing, but crossing over with the quantum physics has gotten into a lot of revelation when you cross-reference the Bible and the Holy Spirit inspiration that comes from seeking out these questions. So the Lord gives us nuggets and things to unravel over time if we seek them out. And I found out that the whole thing with the Wi-Fi thing and the internet and the I believe it was, what was it, Facebook and Zuckerberg trying to do the global flying internet over Africa and trying to link in everybody through through their net. And so I was trying to research the New Agers as they pertain to the coming.
Seems to also, fit with the esoteric aspects of what we're learning about not only the prophetic side of it from the Bible, but also, with the connections to the Nakash and the feathered serpent in Genesis chapter 3, the Revelation 12, that old serpent, that ancient dragon, that kind of thing. But that we see this also reflected in the mythologies. And so can you comment on that?
Yeah, I basically have, as in explaining to people, why does mythology play so much into modern science? Why are they fixated on things like Shiva and the cosmology of physics and quantum physics as it relates to these ancient gods? And you basically come to I think, for me, I come to the conclusion that in the glyphs and in the material left around the world, it was the Atlantean time frame that had this high science, this esoteric science, and they left the reverse engineering in the stories and in the glyphs so that in a future time, man, given enough revelation from the fallen angels, those who are in the occult side of things, who want to conspire with that side of things, will be revealed some of this fallen angel technology through the reverse engineering of these glyphs and the different landmarks, the megalithic structures and things like that. So I think that's how I kind of frame it now, that we are basically reverse engineering the ancient mythology stories into modern science or into modern technology, from everywhere from the CERN related to the internet and the Wi-Fi and all those technologies, to CERN related to the Golden Age, ancient Saturn ruling the sky through the Thunderbolts projects, and then the Birkeland currents, of course. And so it's a mythology definitely plays a direct role in revelation as to what's going on in the end times.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I also see that, as you stated, that we're being led to a rediscovery of these ancient technologies, and that what they had achieved.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores thinking world flat, and with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other worlds. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
Portals of introspection, a reflection of my own face. In her warm, sunny eyes, I reach a serene space. Her vision tempts my mind, inspiring thoughts to written word. She holds my heart fixated, alluring me in curious urge. Caressed by her sly gestures, I touch her with my eyes, and with but one kiss I steal all her alibis. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen. And I have as guest with me Brother Tim Clark from End Times Matrix News. Chris was supposed to be on with us as well, but she is not going to be able to make it. Tim, are you there, brother?
Yeah, hi. How you doing today, Zen?
Really good. Thanks for taking the time to join me this evening, and look forward to catching up with you on all the work that you have been doing there. Before we continue, if you would, please give out, your website, contact information, whatever you'd like to share with the listening audience, and also speak about, maybe some of the recent projects that y'all have been putting forth.
Well, we've been really busy quite a bit these past few months, and we're just putting things into written format at this time. End Times Matrix News, our main channel that Chris monitors, is on YouTube, End Times Matrix News. That's where we put together all the videos with the elaborate diagrams that Chris comes up for us to explain the mythology as it connects to modern science, as we're currently collaborate with Anthony Patch on the continuing CERN investigations. Anthony being the foremost CERNologist, I guess, as they would call it, in the alternative media. And so that's the main YouTube channel that we post on. And then we also have the Facebook pages, End Times Matrix News, over there. And then Chris just got back on the Facebook, so she has, if you look up Chris as in Kris and ETM, End Times ETMN, then that is her webpage where she'll post also all the visuals for the folks to see over there.
All
so
right, excellent.
So we've been very involved, just putting together the pieces that we've been continuing lately with the things related to CERN and the end times and biblical passages. And we've really have some, I think it would seem very extreme to most people what we're working in, but I think we've come up with some very plausible scenarios for what's going on.
Well, I think that the issue with CERN is so very important and critical, and it ties to even what Christ had put forth with, as in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the second coming of the Son of Man. Because if you read in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, it speaks about how they were trying to open up, even during the Atlantean Age, these stargates, these portals, and doing these rituals were, specifically that they were offering blood and doing, whatever kind of blood rituals as a way to open up these portals and invite these darker entities, these, as it says, interdimensional and even serpent-headed beings, shape-shifting beings, into this realm and dimension. And what I find fascinating about that particular text and the passages which are connected to it is that it seems